Hi there. So this is the GCSE one. I've just done a little A-level one, so look back at that if you're an A-level student. This is 4 things to do to get yourself a grade 9, and this is grade 9 in physics, but this is really advice to you what you're going to be doing now with 1 week for the exams, okay, 1 week before the exams. And this tip, I'm going to go straight into it, is about coverage, and it's about understanding that you understand what you're going to be asked to do in those exams and make sure that you are ready to do those. Okay, if you're A-level or if you're watching this at another time, okay, then go ahead and look in the description because I've got a whole load of kind of suggested videos, things that I think will be really useful for you to see right now. So this video is all about the 4 things. Well, this is the first of 4 things that you need to be doing to get yourself a grade 9. And I want to be really motivational for you. I want you to think, yes, I can do this. Yes, I have got 1 week before the main exams sort of start to kick in and that big grind comes along, but I can get those A stars. And this, I'm going to guide you through this week. This is 4 actionable things each day, one each day, that you can do in this week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, to give yourself the best chance to get yourself prepared to get those grade 9s. This one is about coverage, and it's about really understanding what you're expected to do in those exams. And here's what I want you to do, and you're going to do this as soon as this video is over. I'm going to say, right, you're going to go ahead and do this. You're going to find the specification for your course, and then you're going to go through that specification, and you're going to look out for the command words, because the specification is worded in such a way as they tell you how they're going to examine those things. It doesn't just say learn about stars and stuff. It says exactly how you are going to need to exactly how you're going to be tested on the stars topic. I was just wondering if I had the specification open just there to tell you exactly how you're going to be tested on that particular part. Look out as you go through that. Look out for the things where they are like recall this, know this, state this. And when they're saying things that apply this to situations, apply this to novel, new, different situations that we don't necessarily know about, is a different command word, a different skill. Maybe it's evaluate evidence that. And it's not stuff you need to memorize, therefore, it's that you need to be able to look at some data they've given you and make comparisons, etc. But I want you to really focus on the memory work when you go through this now. Now, also, I really want you to be prioritizing. Now, you have 1 week until your exams, right? And I think really, if you're looking for a grade 9, it's probably not possible to get a grade 9 in every single one of the subjects. So I'm going to ask you to do this just for 3 subjects tonight. Okay, you might find that this is really useful for you, and you go ahead and you do this with your other subjects as well. But I would just pick 3 subjects tonight, and I would go through the specifications for those. Maybe that's biology, chemistry, physics. Maybe that's physics, maths, and English. But you go through the specification of those, just the teaching content. Okay, exactly how you're going to be tested on for those different things. So go ahead and get those things this evening. That's going to be about an hour each, about 3 hours of revision, your normal kind of evening revision with 1 week to go. And make sure there's no points in that where you're like, whoa, what on earth is that even about? There's nothing that you're just like, oh, this is really frightening me. And if there is those parts, then you realize you've got that time still to fill those gaps. And this is really, really important at this point. Also, I want you to be a prioritizer because you have essentially 2 sections to your exams. And I want you to think about them almost like two exam periods. There's this week to prepare for the 2 weeks before the half term. Then you've got a week, you've got a half term to prepare for the second 2 weeks. So if you haven't already gone through and highlighted the things that you need to be focusing on now are the exams before half term, and then you need to focus on the exams after half term. So in that half-term week, you're going to do exactly the same as what you're going to do this week. You're going to prepare yourself for that second period. You're going to prepare yourself for those 2 weeks of exams. And I would really double in on about 3 subjects that you know you want to know, probably the ones you want to do at A-level, the ones that you know you want to do your absolute very, very best in. And I want you to start now by making sure you cover everything, because you can. If you want a grade 9, you need to leave no stone unturned. If you want a grade 8, 7, 6, all those things, you need to leave no stone unturned. You need to cover absolutely everything. And let's face it, you haven't now got any time to waste, so it needs to be effective revision. So what I'm going to do for you this week, the next 3 things is the first of 4 things you need to be doing to get a grade 9. So do this, make sure you get something. It doesn't have to be a specification if that's not what you've been using. I know that Pixel schools always use these PLC things. I don't think they're quite as good as the specification or other checklists. Maybe it's Physics Online's GCSE checklist. You can go and get, maybe you've got good revision guides like Primrose Kitten's revision guides or something like that. Anything you can checklist exactly what you're going to be examined on, and you can make sure there's nothing that you can get wrong. I will have a little look at questions because there's been one come up in the comments as well. If you've got any questions, I'll have a look towards the end. So I'll be back with something each night this week, something you can do right then and there. Okay. Also, think about this week. You've got to get yourself exam ready. You've got to get yourself in the zone. You've got 1 week to prepare. You're going to do little things like make sure your pencil case is all sorted. You've got a nice new calculator. You've got sharp pencils, or better yet, clicky pencils. You've got black, lots of black, whatever type you quite enjoy to write with. You know, this is going to be quite a stressful time. So make sure that you're prepared for earlier, that you're not having to go out on the night before the exam to buy a calculator from Tesco's or something like that. And also get into the routine. I don't know if your school does study leave, or if you're still in school, make sure that you are sitting down, ready to go and ready to work, ready to do your best work at 9 in the morning. So during this revision period, it's not time to get up at 2 o'clock and start revising. Then no staying up late. I want you to get a good night's sleep every single night, because you need to get your body into the zone of 9 a.m. is the start time. 9 a.m. is boom, I'm sat down and I'm writing, I'm answering my first question at 9 a.m. So make sure you're ready to do that. Okay, and think about also this. Think about when you're going into each of those exams, what do you want to look at on the way in to the exam? What do you want to actually be looking at? What's the one sheet of A4 paper that you want to have with you when you're just going, and you can just put it in the bin as you go into the exam room? Those are all the little things, little memory items that you need to make sure you're ready to go. So I'm going to answer the question in a second. This is the first of 4 tips to make sure you are doing the right things right now to give yourself the best chance of getting the highest grades, the grade 9s. You haven't got any time to waste, so this is the time now to go and find the specifications and look through them with a fine-tooth comb and just be thinking, what can they ask me to do? There's not an infinite number of things they can ask you to do, and it's not just know this stuff. It is, we're going to test you in this way, and that's how they word the specification, so you know exactly what you're expected to do in that example. All right. I'll come back to that in just a second. So comparing renewable, non-renewable energy, any framework or grid for comparing across. Rachel, I would always say learning the kind of like raw advantages and disadvantages of each is not really going to get you all that many marks. It's all about being able to compare them in context. So always just think to yourself, don't think about any standard kind of responses. Think to yourself about comparing them in context, and always, always, always. So, let me finish. Is our context in the UK is very different to maybe a Thai island or something like that. So I went snorkeling on the Thai island of Koh Tao, and the entire island was powered by 2 big diesel generators. Now that is, far more appropriate than building a nuclear power station, even though the nuclear power station does not produce greenhouse gases and produces a massive amount of power compared to diesel. So their answer to their electricity generation needs is based in their context. And right now, economically, those things are very, very useful. They can speed them up, slow them down. They can get the source to the right place. They can get the source onto the island very easily. There's loads of reasons why that is the right answer for them in their context. However, that is not the right answer for us with a large city like London or something like that. We're never going to, if we have diesel generators, there are going to be hundreds of thousands of them, and all of that greenhouse emissions is going to add up. And there's also going to be health issues because loads of people live near them. So my point is, learn the things, but always think about evaluating them in the context. Learning the advantages and disadvantages is not very hard, but evaluating in context is quite difficult. And my other bit of advice is always be making comparisons. So always be making, that's better because it's more of something than this. That nuclear power station is better than a diesel generator for London because you have a larger energy output per kilogram of fuel, or because you have less emissions than the diesel generators. I hope that makes sense. It's just about comparing with those things. I always think that being evaluative. Any unpredicted papers are a good source of revision? Yes, any bank of questions, as long as you think they're good enough quality, as long as you think they have paid attention to what how they're going to be tested. Like I had a look earlier at the GCSE bite-size questions, and that's been massively professionally produced, but the questions aren't really anything like the type of GCSE questions. Be alarmed if a set of questions say, what is the, or why is this? Because that's not the wording of exam questions. The exam questions will always be describe this or explain this. You know, like there will always be a command word, and if you understand those command words, you give yourself the best opportunity of getting the marks because you can answer at the right level. I've lost count of the number of times when students have given an explain answer to a describe question, or a describe answer to an explain question. If you're giving an explain answer to a describe question, you're thinking too hard anyway. So you just need to be sure exactly what they mean by that. And that is all contained within the specifications. The way the specifications are written is in the command terms, the actual things they're going to ask you to do. So you don't need to, it does not say know all the advantages and disadvantages of fossil fuels versus renewables. What it does say is be able to evaluate the energy resources or something like that using given data, okay? So don't spend time doing things that you're not asked to do. Just bought my Japanese pencils. Yeah, they are really, really good. They're really good because they sharpen as you go, and you never have to worry about it. If you have a clicky pencil, you never have to worry about the sharpener or the lead breaking, because you just click, 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 and you keep going. And it's always going to be sharp enough. And you know in exams, you need to be accurate with your plotting to half a small square on graphs. So you need to be really, really accurate with those graphs. Great. They are available if you want them, by the way, via my Amazon store, which is just in the links there. Full disclosure, I get like a tiny percentage if you buy anything from that, but they're no more expensive than if you bought them otherwise. Molly threw in, could you be asked to design a practical like in? Yes, you could, yeah, but the designing of the practical would be using the apparatus and techniques from the core practicals or the required practicals. So you don't need to come up with something completely from scratch. If you learn all of the 8 required practicals, or however many there are in your syllabus, then those apparatus and those techniques will be the answers to a question like, design a practical to investigate this hypothesis. So again, it says that in the specification, it says that you are only required to know this list of apparatus and these techniques, and they are covered by the required practicals. So basically, learn the required practicals by heart, learn how to be accurate with them, learn how to evaluate them, learn how to process the data, and that is enough to answer any question about practicals design or describe. You know, design would mean come up with a new practical. Describe means tell me a practical that you know, which is the required practicals. But design would be use the techniques from the required practicals to come up with a method. So it's just put the, match the techniques and apparatus to this hypothesis, basically. Does that make sense, Molly? Also, any last exam tips? Well, yes, these are these. This is exactly what I'm doing this week. Okay, you can do this. Molly, that question was a stinger, lol. Yeah, well, I thought I did quite well with it. Oh, you mean the question, the biology one there? Yeah, but actually, when you look back at the biology one now, right? Go back to that question and actually, oh yeah, that is just the same apparatus and techniques as from that core practical there, that required practical there. I bet you'll notice that. Okay, so any kind of, design a practical for this thing, suggest a method. It's not going to be come up with it from scratch. It's not going to be like come up with your own ideas out of nowhere. Okay, it'll be rude for them to do that, and they're not rude. Tomorrow I have Edexcel Physics Unit 3. Any tips? Do you really have Edexcel Unit 3? Is that like is that international or something, Dinny? Okay. But definitely, if that's Edexcel A-level physics, then go through my exam paper, General and Practical Principles of Physics. Also have a little look, because I've kind of broken down on my website some of the key elements, or I've also got a video. Yeah, I've got the same notes from the video. Yeah, okay, international. Yeah. So I've got the there's a video in the suggested ones for all the core practicals from Edexcel. So I definitely suggest you sit and watch through that, and just, as I said, it's the same idea in A-levels as in GCSE. You've got this certain list of apparatus and techniques, and then certain list of apparatus and techniques, and then you apply those to any kind of situation. All you need to learn is the core practicals, and you will know all the apparatus and techniques for your exam. For MIST, it isn't part of spec, but it is in the core practicals. Okay, well, it's not specifically in the core practicals. What it is to know that some things, that the bulb essentially behaves like a thermistor in that its resistance changes due to temperature. Are you sure it's not in the spec, Q? Because I'm pretty sure thermistors are in the specs. And in any case, they could say, here's a different component. How would you measure it? How would you measure, how would you conduct this practical? And the skills we'd be looking at would be the core practical skills, voltmeter in parallel, ammeter in series, that type of stuff. Okay, just a couple more questions then I'm going to go. Your biology colleagues think that biology papers are getting harder in the last 3 years. Now, I think that the reason why the biology, my hunch, the biology grade boundaries were pretty darn low. And my hunch as to why that is because they put a lot of maths into the biology specification now. And it's maths that probably biologists aren't so used to teaching. So I actually think probably that the biology specification changed more than the chemistry and the physics ones did. The physics ones didn't really get that much harder, I don't think, but the biology changed more, and therefore the teaching probably didn't cater for that change as well as it should have done. I'm not saying the teaching was poor, I'm just saying that for me in physics, I didn't feel like I was having to change why I was teaching or any of the skills I was teaching as much for the new specifications as I did for the old ones. And therefore, I think that the biology grade boundaries are lower because they've had to change more. There's far more maths in biology now. They do far more statistical maths in the biology and the chemistry actually than they did in the previous one. But they didn't need to introduce any more maths into physics because it was already very maths heavy anyway. I actually think that the physics, if anything, has got a bit easier because of the way we're marking the maths questions. It gives you much more opportunity for credit for showing steps in working out. So definitely make sure you always show all of your working out. Please, gosh, if you don't do that, you are losing so many opportunities to get marks. It used to be the case that if you forgot a unit conversion, you could basically get none of the marks in a calculation. But now the way that we mark it, if you forget a unit conversion, you're only ever going to lose one of the marks. The rest of the work, we will follow it through. Let's say a 4 marker. If you forget a unit conversion, you do everything else right, you'll still get 3 of the marks. Okay, so make sure that you do show all of your working. Right, that's me, I reckon. How many practices for the year 12? There are 8 for year 12 and 8 for year 13 in most GCSEs. Yeah, like 8. Okay, so once more then, this is your tips, your first of 4 things to do for grade 9. And right now, go ahead, go get the specification, spend 1 hour tonight on 3 of your priority subjects, 1 hour on each, go through the specification and look out for memorization items particularly, and spend the time memorizing dictionary perfect or textbook perfect explanations of those things. And also make sure there's nothing in there that you are like, whoa, what on earth is this? If there are bits like that, then spend the time making sure or plan a way to make sure that you cover those things, because you cannot afford, if you want the top grades, to have gaps in your knowledge. You cannot afford right now to be wasting time going over stuff that you do know quite well if there's a gap sitting there ready to cost you marks in the real thing. So I'll be back with something each night this week. This is something you should be doing right now. So off you go. You got some work